So let me turn to my final big question on today's foreign policy roundtable. Has India's Vishwaguru image taken a hit in recent times? Vishwaguru, global leader. Andrew, why don't you kick this one off? Because in the last few months, we've hoped that Pakistan would be isolated. That's not quite happened. We've been accused by some for not taking a clearer stand on the terrible tragedy unfolding in Gaza. And in general, there's a sense that our image as some kind of a global leader has taken a bit of a hit. Do you agree with that? That India in the belief that we could be a leader of the global south, and in general, we are not seen in the same light by the rest of the world as we would like to see ourselves?
I think you're onto something there. My sense is that the Indian political establishment sees India's natural role in 2025 as leading the global south. And who does that put it in competition with? What other great power wants to pretend that it can lead this thing called the global south? Well, it's China. So there's a friction there which is not going to go away anytime soon. What India, I don't think, sees itself as is a replacement for the United States as the quarterback, as it were, or the policeman, if you like, of this unipolar moment, this global Bretton Woods, free trade, et cetera, the American system that was put in place and globalized it in 1991. I don't think India aspires to that, but India does aspire to regional leadership. I was tempted to say hegemony there for a moment, which means it's going to butt heads with Pakistan and with China, not with the United States. And it sees itself more broadly as a leader, a natural leader of the global south, post-colonial, et cetera, et cetera. And whose head is it butting up against in that respect? China's, not the United States, maybe Donald Trump, but the US, India's participation in the BRICS has been one of stymieing Russian and Chinese efforts to rewrite the rules of global order. So it's not an adversary or an enemy in that regard. I think the United States would be well served if it supported India's bid for some kind of leadership in the Indo-Pacific, let's call it hegemony, and some kind of leadership in the global south. I'd much rather India playing that leadership role than Russia or China, that's for sure.
Dan,
So I would be on India's team and not insisting that they be on Team USA.
Daniel, what's your view? Has India's Vishwaguru image taken a hit? Is there a gap between our ambitions and the reality on the ground? And I want you to focus particularly on those who also are questioning now India's seemingly neutral stand on what's unfolding in Gaza, for example.
Well, I'd say that there's probably no country in the world that's viewed internationally the same way it wants to be viewed internationally. And India is certainly no exception to that. The idea of it being a Vishwaguru was always, I think, a little bit overstated. And I think it's become more overstated. Now it's irked various neighbors in different ways. It's obviously, as Andrew was saying, irritated China. A lot of that, of course, is deliberate. When it comes to Gaza and the Middle East, I think it's hard probably for India to claim leadership of the quote unquote global south while simultaneously not being that active when it comes to what's happening there, given that it is a huge issue in so much of the world, and especially outside of the United States and Europe. And it's a growing issue there as well, particularly in Europe. So yeah, I think it was always overstated. And I think it has become more overstated, particularly as India has become a little bit more aggressive and belligerent in its own region, as it's aspired to, if not hegemony, some form of leadership. And
Right.
to some extent, that's what happens.
Jayan Krishna, do you believe that we need to temper down a bit of the Vishwaguru rhetoric and get real at times and just focus on a political realism that's now dominating the world?
Yeah, absolutely, Rajdeep. This Vishwaguru stuff is nothing but a self-proclaimed position. I mean, who in the world calls us Vishwaguru? I mean, we call ourselves Vishwaguru, but the fact is we are far from getting there. I mean, we have not declared Russia the aggressor in its war with Ukraine. Our stand on Israel versus Gaza versus Iran, remains ambiguous. So I think there are lots of things, and the fact is, we may be flexing our muscle that we have become the fourth largest economy, right? But the fact is, where do we stand in terms of per capita income? There our rank is 141 out of 194 nations. What about human development index in the country? Our rank is 130 out of 193 nations. Hunger index, our rank has improved a bit, but it's still an appalling 105. Pollution indexes. So whatever you look at, I think we have a long way to go. Just by proclaiming that we are Vishwaguru, it doesn't help. A lot of fundamental course corrections have to do. A lot of decisive stands, our earlier positions notwithstanding, I think we have to do in the international space, and a lot of course correction in the way our economy is managed if we really want to live up to the Vishwaguru. I mean, how many Nobel laureates?
The flip side, of course, Yasina, is that many believe that Prime Minister Modi, who's aggressively traveled across the world, meeting leaders, even in some of the smaller countries that previous Indian leaders hadn't gone to for several decades, has tried to sort of use the Indian diaspora, use our soft power to reach out to countries around the world. Has it succeeded to the extent that we believe in, or has it been a mixed record in your view?
You see, for me, I mean, I don't see India as a Vishwaguru in terms of hard power. I see India as a Vishwaguru, as a civilizational Vishwaguru, and not just, I mean, it's not me only. You
but if
can
we are a
quote people from
civilizational
the past.
Vishwaguru, shouldn't we be taking a stronger stand when, for example, innocents are killed in Gaza?
No, so we are taking a stand in our national interest. So you must understand that every time that the West sort of goes one way, we won't be following that unless it's in our national interest. But we have, for instance, we restated our position as far as the two-state solution for Palestine goes. Recently at the UN, we did vote in a resolution for, I think it was the situation in the Middle East. So it's, we have to do a fine balancing. And we cannot afford to forget our friends. So coming back to your Vishwaguru question, certainly not. We are not a Vishwaguru in the sense of hard power, but we are a Vishwaguru as a civilizational power, and which has been recognized by many, Tolstoy, Einstein, and others. So I don't want to go into that. So I think it's not the self-projection so much. It is what we are striving to become.
Okay.
And obviously, we are not there yet. But I'm confident at some point we will be there.
Okay. KC Singh, let me give you a final word on that Vishwaguru question. Are we, is the image not matching quite the reality? And in a sense, therefore, has 2025 been a bit of a wake-up call? Even for External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar, who was being toasted by the chatterati in this country as someone who was sort of speaking up and standing up to the West, has all of that got to be now sort of balanced with a sense of realism?
Rajdeep, I think if India was the Vishwaguru, it really was in the first about 15 years after India's independence. As decolonization took place, Commonwealth group of countries were there. Nehru was kind of treated like a Vishwaguru until the Chinese deflated him in 1962. So it's China
Nehru has come into the discussion on Indian foreign policy after 50 minutes. He came 14 times in the Prime Minister's speech in Parliament.
There is absolutely no doubt that in the 50s till 1962, and probably one of the reasons that the Chinese attacked India was they saw the stature of Nehru out of line with India's economic and military strength. And they wanted to deflate India. That's why they came in and they went back. So that was the high point, was in the 50s. If you had Indochina, they wanted somebody to come and be on the Indochina Commission. India was invited. India was into all those positions. We were all over Africa. We led the Commonwealth. We helped create the Commonwealth. So as the countries decolonized, they came into that tent. Now, who talks about Commonwealth today? You take the Islamic world. And I think the problem is the majoritarian politics domestically. You can't move away from liberal democracy and a secular system and then expect the entire Islamic world to be with you. You can't just go with Israel and a few Abraham Accords countries and say you are Vishwaguru. You're not Vishwaguru. There are a whole lot of Islamic countries which are watching you carefully and saying how you deal with the minority in India. So you can't be one thing at home and try projecting a different thing abroad. I think that contradiction comes out. So I think it's a much smaller international image than we had in the 50s, than probably we even had after 1971, when Mrs. Gandhi was seen as someone who took on America and etc.
Let
That kind of, I don't think that kind of leadership is any longer possible, nor is it desirable, because China has penetrated the South, the developing world, Belt and Road Initiative. They got money, they got deep pockets. They're all over Africa. They're all over the developing world. So to suddenly go and seek leadership there, I think we need money in the pocket. It's not going to be that easy. And that's why Quad started moving in that direction.
Right.
They realized that you can't be just talking of simply containing China without putting money on the table or without reaching out to the developing countries. And that's been on the Quad agenda.
Right.
And probably India will take it up. So it's a world in transition in which nobody is a leader. I think at the moment, do you think Trump is a global leader? I mean, his stature is nowhere near what American. See, Kennedy was. There's just no comparison at all. So as a result, I think we are in a world where transition is taking place. The old post-World War II system is being attacked by America itself, and the Chinese want to change elements of it. They want free trade, but they don't want many other parts of that system. They don't want to reform the Security Council. They will not let India come in there. So it's ultimately, you will be a wish guru if you enter the Security Council, if you have greater votes in the World Bank, IMF, if you have presence all over the world, and countries respect you as a liberal democracy, flying your flag high as a functioning liberal democracy. Without that, you can't be a wish guru.
I want to just simply say to what I just heard from K.C. Singh Touche, because I think there are many strengths that India has in the 21st century. And one of those strengths is the belief that we are or were a liberal democracy, and that perhaps is a standout, particularly when you look at the authoritarian regime that still exists in Pakistan, a military regime and army state, and in China, where many freedoms continue to be crushed. Those are India's values, India's core values. And hopefully America too will recognize, and India will recognize that there's an America beyond Donald Trump. And Donald Trump and his administration will realize that in the future, India still remains a country that can be a bulwark, not just against China, but as a country that represents some of the finer values of a democracy. But for that, we have to get our own act together, both on the political front and indeed even on the economic front. The more economic heft you have in this multipolar world, the more the world treats you seriously. Therefore, plenty to ponder upon for those who look at foreign policy closely.